Well, let me get into a nature nurture debate, which is some people naturally have these skill sets, others don't. Like, culture is a squishy concept in some respects,
Is
as
that
is
the technical
mindset.
term?
Right? Mindset is something that you can perhaps teach, but there's also something that you get by osmosis. When you're in a company and you see the culture and you feel it every day. So tactically, let's say I'm a leader, I've got a team, I'm reading this book. What are some of the tactical steps that you can actually do on a personal level to make some of these realities happen?
Yeah. So I sort of boil it down to a few. I'd say one is when you are making decisions for your customers, and to your point, right? I love the squishy term, right? Because everyone goes, is that the technical term, squishy? Like that's the best way to describe it. It's like empathy. It's squishy also, like, right? Can
Mm-hmm.
you teach it? Right. Is ultimately we were making these decisions for customers, and the unintended consequence was the employees suffered because of that decision that was made. So I ask executives and individual contributors, as well as mid-level managers, to just take a pause when they make a decision for one, to just stop for a second and say, hold on, have I thought about the implications to the other? And so that is that mindset shift. Another is literally to be able to create an environment where your employees have a voice on the decisions that are being made. And so kind of the beginner's mindset, if you will, carve
Mm-hmm.
out 20 minutes or 30 minutes a day as a leader or mid-level manager. Get out of your chair, get away from your computer screen, and walk amongst your people and ask them how they're doing. Watch them in their job. Now, if you're remote, then join them on a Zoom call, right? Or listen in to a customer service call. There's always ways to be present and get in front of your employees, because that requires going back to it, right? That's not squishy. It's if you could get up and talk to one employee every single day for 15 minutes, you'd have a much different perspective. And so I think that is how you create a reality of changing the mindset.
We're in a challenging economic environment, and I'm not going to put the Mark Benioff hat on you, but Salesforce is one of many companies that have had to have reduction in workforce during this period, layoffs, some people would call it. How do you stay true to these principles when you're in a downturn?
I think this is where your culture really shines through. Salesforce is a great place to work pretty much across the board globally on multiple lists. We're one of the
Mm-hmm.
most innovative companies in the world, and we're the fastest growing enterprise software company. And that is not a coincidence. So the culture has been one that is built on trust. Our leadership team is highly transparent and inclusive in decisions that are made. And that communication cycle was extremely frequent, obviously during the pandemic. And then on the
Mm-hmm.
other side of that as well, keeping the conversation open so that ultimately when decisions are made, employees know why. I understand why. I might not like it. I might have gotten caught in the reduction, but I understand why. And I think that is where culture is such a huge part in making sure that not only when good times are happening, but when it gets challenging, do you have a culture that can continue to withstand whatever comes at us?
I want to get back to the second part of your book, Ted, changing the way we think about growth, especially when we think about sustainability. And we've had this relentless pattern of growing, certain percentage per year. That's how we're judged. On a more organic level, do you think about growth differently in this environment?
Well, I think the growth at all costs has been challenged, right? It's like, will it hide our mistakes, right? Will it hide our bad decisions? Will it hide, the fact that our employees aren't satisfied? Will it hide the fact that our customers maybe aren't happy? There are lots of things that can be hidden when
Mm-hmm.
revenue is happening. And look, if both customer and employee aren't happy, growth is probably not happening at the levels that it should be. But if one is happening and the other isn't, we still saw growth rates. It's when both of those things happen simultaneously. So I think it's important to understand, there's an example in the book with a company called Clearco out of Canada. Michelle
Mm-hmm.
Romanow was the founder and CEO. She's now stepped down. She's just on the board. But, they were hyper growth at all costs. She was a double unicorn. And she went, look, I have to lead this company into not hyper growth, but now resiliency, right? Sustainability, sustaining the growth, all of those things. I am not the right leader for that. And stepped aside and put the right leader in place. And so sometimes, people have to make the hard decisions that I was really good in maybe times of challenge, or I was really good in the good times, but I may not be the leader to then, continue the business going forward. So I think there's all kinds of things to unpack under that, but, not all growth is good growth.